Hello and welcome to the radio room. Going to take a little break from the FT101 for a little bit. Got to order some stuff for it, some capacitors. Change those out. That last video we seen that it lived. There is a after I got done with that. And it didn't make it into the video. I did hook an antenna up to it. I was actually listening to some stations. It does seem like it's off frequency. I was comparing it to another radio, listening to the same station, just switching between the two radios. And according to what it was displaying on the display on the 101, wasn't matching what I was hearing those other stations at. So it's probably going to need some alignment as well. But in the meantime, I had this thing, Astron VLS-25M, sitting in storage for a while. It's kind of an interesting power supply, I guess you could say. It's not your everyday run-of-the-mill power supply that you just throw up on a shelf and power your ham radio or CB or stereo or what off of. And it's heavy. It's 46 pounds. I had it in a crate. Like to not ever got it back out of there. There was just no way to get a hold of anything sitting down in the crate trying to get my hand down beside it without hurting myself on these sharp heat sinks. This is what Astron calls one of their 28 volt power supplies. This one actually goes, you can see right here, it's variable voltage. I believe it's 5 to 32 volts is where you can adjust the voltage. It also has variable output current limiting. For as big as this thing is, it if you're used to looking at, say, an Astron like RS-20, you know, that's a 20 amp surge on 13.8 volts and I think 16 continuous. This one changes, kind of varies where you got your voltage set. If you got it at full 28 volts, it'll peak I think at 25 amps and continuous is like 18. You get down into closer to 12 volts and its peak at 12, I believe, and continuous current is 10 amps. So for the size of it, if you're using it for a 13.8 volt power supply, it might be bigger, but it has less amperage capability than, say, an RS-20. But it would make a good variable power supply. It also, with the amp limiting, you can set that and say you're running something and you just need, you don't want any more than 5 amps going into this device. So you could set this at 5 amps, and when it gets to 5 amps, even if that device wants more, what it's going to do is it's going to start folding back the voltage in order to keep no more than 5 amps going into that device. So it kind of has a little bit of a safety built into it, especially if something, you know, whatever you say you're working on something or you're operating something and it cannot run more than that amperage. Perhaps it probably shouldn't. So it's a little bit of a built-in safety on that. I've never turned this thing on. To tell you the truth, I can't even remember where I got it. It's been around a little while. It's it's a little rough in spots. Let me change the view real quick here. Looking at the top of it here, obviously you can see it's got plenty of dust and stuff on it. It also does have a few. This thing's heavy. Pretty well, can't see that in the camera. Oh, this thing's heavy. Pretty banged up corner right here, which, yeah, heck, that's probably fixable. This corner over here is kind of banged up. You can see it's got a bent fin down in there. It's mostly dirty. This whole side here has got a number of bent fins on the heatsink. But I figured, you know, what the heck. Got the dim bulb tester built. I have no idea if this thing's going to do anything. I don't know if it's got anything shorted out in it. You know, if a pass transistor or something is shorted out. This thing's got, looks like 8 pass transistors. And on the back, right over here, there's another transistor. I'm going to guess they're probably using that as the driver for the big ones. So variable voltage output, probably 5 to 32 volts, and current limiting is basically what this thing is. So I'm going to go ahead and get it plugged in, and we will see if it see what it's going to do. I'll get this set up so we can see the front of it as well. I'm going to try and do this so that we can see the dim bulb tester. If this happens to have any sort of problems, I'm hoping we're going to be able to see that. I'm going to set this down here like this. Maybe I can get away with that. Maybe y'all can see if the bulbs light up. So give me just a moment and I'll get this thing plugged in and we'll turn it on and see what's going on. Now, aside from possibly charging the capacitors, with no load on this power supply, I'm not really expecting to see anything on the dim bulb. If it is, it's going to be very, very low, you know, barely glowing. There's really not going to be any current flowing once you get past that initial rush of the capacitors, filter capacitors charging. Okay, so let me get us so we can see both of them at the same time. I believe this has lighted meters in it too, or supposed to. We'll find out here in a moment. We might have more light than we care to see here in a moment if this thing's got a short in it. It does have a 10 amp fuse in the back of it. With both bulbs in line, I think it's limited to a maximum of like 1.5 amps that can go through. I didn't do the math on it real quick, but anyhow, let's see if the thing turns on. If it does, we'll put a voltmeter on it and see what it does. I am a little curious if this thing decides it wants to go ahead and work. I might have to pull this meter out. The needle is stuck at 5. Does not seem to want to move. And does not seem to want to adjust. So I'm thinking there's something, maybe it's gotten knocked or banged or something bent in there. Anyhow, it's stuck. So let me go ahead and turn make sure this is in the off position, which it is. Turn the dim bulb tester on. We are in current limit. And we'll turn the switch on and see what it does, if anything. Let's watch those bulbs. Okay, so we had the big flash with the charging of the capacitors. We do have a little bit of a glow there. It's a little brighter in the camera than what I'm looking at, but it's definitely pulling a little bit of current through there. Let's see if it does anything. I adjust the volts and I get nothing on the meter, but it at least looks like it's. I'm going to turn this off for a moment. I'm going to see if this will actually zero that needle. When we got started, it was actually below zero. Okay, let me zero that meter. Okay, so I'm going to start this all the way down. We're going to turn this back on again. Looks like the capacitors maybe stay charged up. And then I'll start bringing the voltage up. I'm getting no change on the meter, but I don't know if that means just there's a problem with the meter. I mean, that should be full voltage. I'm thinking the meter might be stuck. Turn that back down, give it a second. Okay, it does go back down. It looks like those meters might just be stuck. It looks like it's trying. Okay, so I'm going to go about halfway here. And I'm going to see if I can't put my voltmeter and see what the voltage is. Now I'm going to go, I have this set in 200 volts. Mostly because if this thing's above 20, it's not going to read on the meter. And we will see what we have here. Okay, so we do have some voltage reading there. See if I can get these to stay in here. Okay, 11.4 right there. It is coming up. $25. Okay, it looks like it's getting up about 29.4 volts. That's at full tilt on the volts. It's coming back down, and it's coming down to about 3 volts. So that looks like that's working just fine. Of course, there's not much to do over here on these meters, on the amps. We're not pulling anything off of it right now. So can't really tell if that's working, if it's doing current limiting. I mean, right there would be about where we would normally sit, but we don't have. I mean, that should be sitting about right there. The needle's not moving really at all. So it looks like it's probably putting current out. We don't have a load on it. I am checking the pass transistors to see if just even idling here, if one of them's got a little bit of a problem. Nothing seems to be getting warm. Well, it looks like it turns on. Looks like the meters are going to need either some work or some replacement. But it did turn on. I don't really have anything ready to go right now as far as a load that I can put on it, but we seem to be operating. Now, in order to use this power supply, I mean, unless I just leave it at max and let it do its own overcurrent protection, there's no way that I can set this. Say I wanted to keep it at, let's say, 8 amps at this voltage. Without the meter working, there's no way I can set that. So that would have to be something. I'm going to go ahead and put this into bypass. So it does have full voltage going to it now as far as AC. Voltage didn't change any. Nearly need to get something on this to check, put some little bit of load on it or something, and we might be able to actually kind of see the current limiting. We won't be able to see it on the meter here, but I could put a load on it and then turn this down to the point where it would start limiting. So why don't I see if I can find something that we can plug into it real quick, maybe just some automotive bulbs or something to plug in on the back, and we'll see if this is going to do something. If this is working correctly, we should be able to see the voltage come down as we limit. We'll come down to where, as we hit where whatever the load happens to be pulling on it, as we lower, the voltage should lower once we have exceeded what we set here. So let me pause the video. Let me see if I can rig something up real quick for some bulbs or something. Something we can have a steady draw on the power supply. First off, it'll check this if it's actually going to put a load out on something. And two, we'll be able to see if that limiting's doing anything, even though we can't tell where it's set at right now. So give me just a moment. Okay, so I got a couple of automotive bulbs hooked up around the back. See if I can get these where y'all can see them. A couple right here. Just two 3157s wired up, so both filaments on each bulb is going to light up. I'm going to go ahead and keep this all the way up. I haven't touched the voltage, so it should be sitting right at 13.8-ish. And we'll see what's going to go on. Let's find out what it's going to do. And the lights have come on. I'm gonna go ahead and pull this back over here so you don't have to stare right at that light. And I will just go to this camera. The needle moved. We do have a needle move over here, so it's showing us about 8 amps. I do have this all the way turned up. Not sure exactly how far down the current limit is going to go, but we're not getting any current limiting. Of course, the voltage needle is still not reading. So I'm going to leave this up here, and I'm going to unhook one of the bulbs, and we'll see if the needle here changes. Maybe this just reads what the actual amperage is. Maybe it's not what we actually set it at. So let me unhook one bulb. I'm going to do this without shortening anything out. Okay, and it did change the reading on that. So that maybe that's literally just showing amperage. Because I'll hook that back up. And the amperage does come back up. So it looks like we've got about 8.5 amps on it. I'm going to go ahead, since we do have a load on it now, I'm going to check these pass transistors, see if any of them are getting hotter than another one. I would expect some heat off of them. They're starting to get some heat to them. None of them are extremely hot. A couple of them, it mostly seems like the back ones, towards the back, are running a little hotter. Particularly this one up here is probably hotter than the rest of them. I'm not going to say that they're abnormally warm, at least not at this point. I mean, we've had 8.5 amps continuous on it for a couple of minutes now. This is 10 amp continuous, so I'm going to say they're probably operating within tolerance. These back here could be a little bit warmer just due to the fact that maybe they're not they're also dirtier. Starting to get some decent heat now. I'm also feeling the heat sink. The transistors, I mean, they're going to get warm. It's just the way transistors are. But I'm also feeling the heat sink to see if I can feel that heat in the heat sink. If I can't feel very much heat in the heat sink and the transistor's starting to get really warm, that means we're not getting good thermal transfer to the heat sink. But that does, I mean, I'm feeling it's heat sinking it. So, not really sure why that one never really wanted to drop before. I still think these 2 meters need some help. But other than that, this power supply looks like it's operating correctly. I think it just needs to be cleaned up. Maybe knock out the dings in the back corner, straighten up some fins just a little bit. I have to be careful with those. They're probably aluminum, so bending on them, I don't want to break pieces off. But yeah, I think it's just going to be a clean up and go. And check to see what's up with, or exactly how this is maybe supposed to work. I couldn't find a instruction manual on this. I might be able to find one for maybe like a VLS-25 or a VLS-10. Should have the same operating characteristics, just slightly different components. This one's got more pass transistors, obviously, than a 10 amp one would. We are holding steady, 13.7 volts. So I'm thinking it's probably usable. Just needs to be cleaned up, checked out a little bit, and go from there. Just thought I'd do a quick video on turning one of these on that has never been turned on, seeing if it works, and yeah, it puts out some light, that's for certain. Got both of those bulbs still going. I bet you they're getting nice and toasty. Oh yeah, I can feel the heat come off them when I put my hand near them. All right, so thanks for stopping by the radio room, and just a little quick short video to see if something was going to happen. No fireworks. That's always a good thing. And we'll see you next time. Bye for now.